We're back, and you are with Villaincast BJJ Anti-Heroes with myself, Chris the Villain Paynes. Weekly podcasts featuring either my fellow black belt Naki Arshad on our show Reap the Week, or compelling interviews with other personalities across Jiu-Jitsu. But before we jump into this next show, a thank you to our Patreon subscribers. If you'd like to see these episodes one day early, along with exclusive video content and online coaching, you can find out more via chrispaynesbjj.com. Or join our Discord channel to put your ideas through for future episode discussions. But for now, though, Josh McKinney, I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show himself. It's a dual podcast, except it's only appearing on mine. How you been, man? It's been about 4 or 5 months.
It has, yeah. It's been a little bit. I'm doing good. I like how you introduced Jiu-Jitsu personality. I think that is exactly what I provide when I come on a podcast. I don't know if coach or podcaster or competitor really fits it. Jiu-Jitsu personality, anti-hero. These words are working for me, Chris.
I like how you just dropped all those things in there, like just competitor, coach, online personality,
everything, right?
Like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna
cross
have to,
off question
my
one,
intro
right?
Just for like, I'm gonna have to change up the episode intros just for you, just like he's a now world-renowned competitor for what you did. But we'll come to that anyway. So yeah, a lot has changed, man. You're now doing a lot with BJJ mental models. How's that working out for you?
Man, I've been doing reviews with them for a few months now. I was on the podcast with Steve. We talked about designated winner, and it was a cool connection, but I didn't really know what was going to come of it. And then he just reached out to me one day, and he's like, "Hey, we do this. We have this review team." And I look at the list of the people that are on the review team, Chris, and it's a lot better names than Josh McKinney. And he's like, "But yeah, we have this, we would love if we could get you on." And I was like, "Oh, okay." They add me to this this Instagram chat with all these really high level coaches, and then they threw Josh McKinney on it. And they're like, "Oh yeah, Josh." And people are like, "Oh, Josh, yeah, Josh seems cool. I like him." Like, you guys don't know me. We know that you guys are all up here and I have a podcast. I'm down here, but for whatever reason, they invited me in, and I've gotten to start doing reviews. And that really is something that I feel like I'm pretty good at, is explaining what's happening during a round or explaining what's happening in a match. And that's what most of the review is explaining, this is what should be happening. This would be the ideal situations. This is when you did it. And then kind of, I don't know, just adding some thoughts to those things and being helpful in those things. And that's something I'm pretty good at. And so I've really been enjoying doing these match reviews and just being part of that high level team. It's been a really cool experience. Eventually I'll get fired. Eventually I'll say something ignorant in one of the reviews, and they'll be like, "Hey, Josh, that's racist. You can't say that." But until then, it's been a blast.
Dude, I thought, because I had a podcast with Steve probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and we had a chat afterwards, and I thought I'd say some shit during, just chatting to him. That would be like, "Oh no, Chris is never coming on again." But he was like, "Oh no, this is a brilliant idea. We will do this." I don't want to ruin the surprise on here, but it's like next year, if we pull this off, it's going to be hilarious. So I think you'll be fine. If we're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do what the fuck you want.
Okay. I'm so in.
I'll tell you afterwards because it's really funny.
Okay.
I'll leave it there. Just anyone listening to this, like the 5 people that download this and listen to it, check out the next BJJ mental models. I do. It's going to be pretty funny. But speaking of BJJ mental models, I've been quite lucky now. I've had Greg Sodas on here, Rob Cole, Robbie Anaki, all really intelligent guys. They do appear on mental models. It's already blown my mind the level of coaching that they are capable of. It's already changed how I approach coaching myself. Being around that crowd now, being involved in that ecosystem, have you noticed any change in what you're doing in the gym?
To be totally honest, no. And the reason is because I listen to all those guys' podcasts. like every
True.
episode, like the people that you named, I've listened to all your episodes. That is for me, I'm always changing what's going on in my gym, but I haven't actually gotten to take advantage of having a little closer, or being a little closer to these people yet. It's still pretty new to me, and I've just been busy competing a lot, and I'm finally getting to this point where I can start to focus on the podcast again and just focus on doing podcasts again. And so, I'm excited to explore that, but I really haven't yet. I'm sure once I, specifically like Greg Souders, your episode with him was maybe one of my favorite jiu-jitsu learning episodes, because you and I think a lot alike, right? So it felt like the English version of me was talking with him before I have gotten to talk with him. And so I was hearing the questions you were asking, and I was thinking a lot of those same things. But then it was also kind of prepping me to go, man, when I get this guy on my podcast, I want to dig a little deeper into these thoughts. These are what's interesting to me. And so eventually, I think I will get to ask those questions to those high-level guys, but I just haven't reached out yet. I want to be in a spot where I have time to really dedicate to it and really make them good interviews.
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, like, you say like I remember we had that chat when I was over at yours, and we talked about designated winner, and it sounds very much like what Greg was describing, what Rob describes, and what I'd kind of been doing anyway. Like we always kind of circle around the same ideas of like constraint-led learning, etc. And so you can see why you got put onto mental models. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like you said, I'm like, you're my brother from another mother, as it were. And I felt like a goddamn monkey talking to Greg Souders. It felt like a Rogan podcast where he's got like a high-level scientist on, and he's trying to like hang with the scientist, like, yeah, I understand. But inside his brain's melting, and he's just like trying to like clump it back together again during the podcast. Like that's how I felt. Talking to Greg, like
I assumed, because I was letting you take the hit first. I was like, oh yeah, Chris, this will be perfect. This will be perfect. Chris, jump on this episode first, man. This is the interview, man. And so, yeah, I was listening going, whew, this guy has, but what's interesting is just like you said, when he explains something, I'm somebody who knows your concepts and have talked to you about your concepts a lot, right? And so I know when he is saying something and saying, oh, yeah, this is how we train this, or this is how we think about this. And when he's talking about, center mass or something like that, and you're talking about inside control, and you're meaning, the same thought, the same ideas, and you just express them differently. And it was really cool for me because that is to think that everybody is going to understand jiu-jitsu the way Josh McKinney explains it is crazy. But the way that Chris explains it is different. It is the same idea of grappling, but it's like you explain it to a different, there's way more English in yours than mine, right? And so you're able to, you're going to be able to communicate it to a different type of person. But I just think that, like, and you look at Greg the same way, he's going to be able to communicate it to, people that aren't stupid like us. He's going to be able to communicate it to, when you just see how thoughtful and how intelligent and well-spoken, those are things that you and I go, yeah, we need to add that and do that. But it's also not who you and I are, right? And so we're like just explaining jiu-jitsu the way we like to explain it because it's for, the simple humans of Granite City and Stafford. It's a good way to understand it,
I think there was actually a meme on the Mental Models Discord that I was shown, which was like it was side by side of Danaher and I, and at one point it's like Danaher saying, you must affect this man's Kazushi, and on the other side it just says me like, fuck with his balance. I'm just like, yeah, same shit. Like, right? One you'll get, one you won't. So, yeah, that's pretty much where we fit in. Like we translate for these people who have these fantastic ideas and understand what the fuck they're talking about, and we're like, he just means fuck of their balance. Like, it's cool. Like, oh, okay, I get it now. we speak idiot, in other words.
Uh-huh.
But when you come across an actual genius, you do feel a bit silly. Going back to what you said about your team, then I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I'm just so excited to speak to you, man. You have been competing a lot, and your team does well. So one thing I want to get into is like it's especially because you do really well. Like you have such a fantastic competitive career already. So you recently hit a bit of renown, like I said, for beating AJ Gazarm. Was it the Nashville Open?
It was the Nashville Open, yeah.
Dude, that's how much I care. I didn't even research that. It wasn't like I went online beforehand and I was like, oh no, I need to look up, what did Josh actually win? Like, no, man, that's in here. Like, that's how
Chris, it's because you're my only fan besides my dad. It's because you're the only guy who wanted me to win besides my dad and my jiu-jitsu students,
Yeah, no wonder I love it so much whenever it comes to spend like time with your dad. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You guys are like,
that's what we just
you're
do
the
when we get together. So, yeah, the win with AJ, and like, that's a lot of pressure, man. And so, again, like I don't really get a chance to speak to people who compete as to a high level that you do. So the most obvious question is, how don't you shit yourself? How don't you panic, like outright? What conclusions did you have to come to get over those nerves from your beginning career?
Man, I have dealt with those nerves in waves of my jiu-jitsu because I've competed all the way up to black belt. I've competed at every belt, and I've competed a lot at every belt. But it's almost like at black belt, the nerves reset. They were worse and they were more noticeable than at white belt. Because I knew how much jiu-jitsu I had access to in the gym, and I didn't have that same access to the jiu-jitsu in the tournament. It was like I had tournament day Josh, and he was not near as good. He wasn't near as creative. He was a bit robotic with stuff. He was out there trying to do moves. And they were moves that may have been available and may have not been available. But there are a lot of different shifts I've made in the last 2 or 3 years of really since you and I met, of really just digging in with as many coaches as I could and asking their opinions. And something I like to do is ask, because I've noticed that for years, what you were saying about Gray Souders and all these other coaches, is that we all kind of think similar things, but we explain them differently. And so what I've always found useful is you ask as many high-level coaches as you can, how do you deal with competition nerves? And you get a million different answers. But one of the biggest and best answer that I really got was that you be present. And so for me anymore, I like, this is like a physical thing. This isn't a mindset. But I like to do 3 sets of Wim Hof breathing 2 hours before I compete. Okay. This is just something that I like to do. It works pretty well for me. And I notice it helps with nerves, and it helps. I don't deal with that lung blowout when I do this. You get body tingles when you do it. It's very interesting, but it's really, really helpful. But something that I would do is I would do those breathing exercises. But when I would do them, I would try to be like visualizing being on the mat and being in the match. And that wasn't being present. And the times that I would do that, it was like, I don't know, I was so focused on either, my weight cut didn't go good, or my diet didn't go good, and I was focused on the past, or I wasn't performing because I was like, well, what if I lose? What if this happens? What if that happens? And it wasn't anything in the moment. And, when you really try to think conceptually, you cannot think conceptually in the past or in the future. You have to do it in the moment, right? It has to be done each time in the moment. And that's why it feels so new each time. And so I just noticed, during my breathing exercises, I tried to enjoy that I was in my breathing exercises, because this was a moment that I was going to get to experience at this time that no one else gets to experience. I'm getting the opportunity to fight these high-level black belts today. I've dreamed about this since I was a little kid. And I just enjoy those breaths. I enjoy that panic. I enjoy those tingles. Then I enjoy my warm up. And it sometimes, because I was making middle all year, and sometimes I would go on terrible binge eats, I would have to cut way too much weight the day of. I think I had to cut 3 pounds the morning of for Nashville. And in that time, it sucked, right? It's no fun. But just changing my mindset and being like, hey, nobody in this building gets to cut 3 pounds to fight AJ later. That wasn't who was on my mind, but nobody gets to do this and compete with this. And so just enjoying it. And then when it was time to compete, my mindset was I focused on my first exchange, my first grip fight, and my jiu-jitsu is going to be there. And trusting that in that moment, when the moment starts, when the match actually starts, that my jiu-jitsu is good and that it's going to be there and I can just be present. No amount of thinking about what's going to happen on the match 4 or 5 or 10 minutes or 10 days before changes anything. It's just what I think during that moment and trusting that my jiu-jitsu is going to be there. That's been the biggest shift that I've made and that I've noticed is all those other things, the breathing exercises, the sprints, the warm-ups, all those things really just are to try to get you in the routine of doing jiu-jitsu, just in the present moment and doing it, right? Some of the mindset stuff we've talked about writing stuff down on a piece of paper, they just get you in the moment of doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of finding what gets you present. But for me, it's certain music, it's certain things, it's certain exercises that help me get there. And then it's just grappling.
Which I think I've said this on previous podcasts here. I know I have. Why I was curious, because there's not a lot of money in jiu-jitsu. It hasn't attracted smart coaches up until very recently. So I looked into NFL coaches because there's a lot of money in that, and so I assumed it would attract smart people. And one thing that kept on cropping up when I looked at their coaching advice was this idea that you panic and you have anxiety because you're trying to control the uncontrollable. And that's what I mean. You said there, if you're thinking about what's going to happen in the fight, what you're going to do, you're trying to control shit that's out of your control, and that is going to make you panic. And so it's funny that you say, one of the things that they say is take things back under your control at that point in time. Say, I'm going to have some water, for example. I am going to do this. And it's funny that you're there saying, I'm going to do these exercises. I'm going to make that initial grip, and my jiu-jitsu will come. And I do the same pretty much with my, I write it down. I say, I'm going to grip fight. I'm going to all positive action things that, it's me imposing my will, not imagining what the other person is going to do, which is how we roll anyway. And oddly enough, that's actually how recently I've kind of clicked with coaching it in the gym. In that I've worked backwards from competition now to, best way of describing it is hitting a level of continuity between drilling, sparring, and competition. So how I'd want people to be in competition, fighting to be on top, always maintaining positional dominance, I want them to do in sparring. And if we're doing it in sparring, it has to be the same in class. So there is that instant recall in the fight. I don't have to go, oh, do this move. I can just go recall, bring it back into that moment again. I see them start to panic and just go, no, recall this. And everything they've ever done brings them straight back into that time. You said just about being in the present and making sure that your training reflects that. Because everything you do is leading up to that point. So there's no reason why your rolling should be different. It's it was interesting actually. It was the one of the I said on the previous podcast with Rob Cole, is one of the analogies I've been using recently is, and you will know it soon enough, is playing football with my 9-year-old son, for example. Say if he is in goal and I'm kicking the kicking the ball towards the goal, I can either blast it past his frail little boy body and obliterate him. I can trick shot over his head and just, deny him outright, I could kick it sideways, like nowhere near the goal. Fuck him, I'm going to kick it into the corners, like, in the far end of the field. I mean soccer, by the way, for anyone listening who isn't English, soccer. But those aren't useful for him. And they're not going to make me better. But if I kick it at him at the right pace for him to either deal with or not deal with, then over time he'll improve and I'll improve. But I'm doing the right thing. I'm choosing the right thing to do for competition. Like, because if this was a football match, I'd still be kicking it at the goal. I wouldn't be kicking it sideways. I wouldn't be, I'd hopefully be blasting it through. But I'm doing the right thing all the time. And that's how it feels sometimes in rolling, is that we can choose to do the wrong thing just because we like to fuck with people. Yeah, that isn't going to help us when we get to competition. It's like, there should be that continuity. Like, change the nuance, absolutely. Adjust your level depending on who you're with. Don't blast it through 9-year-olds. But it should be correct. It shouldn't just be different on the... To think that you can roll and train different to how you want to be on competition day, and you're just going to magically make it happen, makes no sense.
So this is actually how I've been. I totally agree, because this is how I've been trying to push it with my students. And I've been maybe trying to push it as like, hey, you guys do this for yourselves, because this is what's been working for me in training. At least from rounds starting from the feet, black belt adult competition, it's been really hard on my body. It's been really hard to physically be able to go every time, right? And so more of that's really where this idea of present thinking and stuff came from, because it's more about sometimes I'm going to be competing with not having trained for 2 weeks because I've been injured, and I still want to try to win this tournament, and it's this matter of, can I command the jiu-jitsu to be there, right? And so something that I've been doing as practice is I will do one performance day a week, kind of how in like the NFL, they play one game, right? And you'll play a scrimmage game on that same day just so you can get that check box of, this is a very important one and done game. We need to win this, right? So I'll come in on a day, and I actually go to one of my friends' gyms. I don't even do it at my gym because it gives me the anxiety of travel too. Then I listen to my music I like to listen to, do all the things I like to do before I compete. And I only have to do it one day a week. And then all my other days of training turn into me going, man, on performance day, I couldn't get out of people's this guard. I was just stuck there. And so then all week I will train hard, but it's not the same training hard from the feet. It's like train hard from knee shield, where I sucked at passing this week. And I can start to get some more reps, talk through it, get some more understanding of it. Why is this not working? Why? Oh, I'm not flattening this guy ever. I've got to get better at flattening guys. Accomplish that task, then I go into performance day the next week and try to flatten everybody. And it's just been making it so much easier for me to always have something to be working on, because like performance day, all I'm trying to do is win. I'm not there to be friendly. I'm just getting really tough rounds, taking a break even in between rounds like you get to at a tournament, and then go hard and try to win those rounds. And so I'm cheating, I'm using strategy. We're bumping into the wall like, hey bro, out of bounds, we got to reset. I know you almost had that sweep, but we got to reset, homie. We got to reset, purple belt. And so, just like really going in with the goal of winning has allowed me to actually pressure test my jiu-jitsu way more than I used to. Cause it used to just be the only time I would realize that something bad was happening was when I would lose in a tournament. And I'm like, I always win in the gym. This always works for me in the gym. I can always make it happen there. And so getting that, like, well, on Fridays you perform, on Saturdays you perform. But then when I go to a tournament and it's time to perform, well, I do this every Saturday,
Yeah. Obviously, for anyone who hasn't followed Josh in the past, he's from a little town, probably one of my favorite places on earth, Granite City, Illinois. And that is as messed up as a joke as that may come across. That is entirely legitimate. anyone ever asked me like where are the favorite places I've ever visited, Granite City, by far. And I remember when Charles Harriet came over and I even said to him, I think in the car journey, like you have no idea how much I love this place. And he even agreed afterwards, like, yeah, it's really charming. I was like, you see it, right? Yeah. I'm genuinely jealous I'm not there right now. Anyway, you're out in Granite City, Illinois, which I imagine most people who are even in Illinois won't know where Granite City is. To be fair, when I was in Illinois, I think I was in Chicago or that kind of like Peoria, where it is, and I was like, oh, I've been in Granite City, and people were like, where? Like, oh yeah, it's down south.
Yeah, very south.
Oh, okay. So you're over in Granite City, Illinois, place where I don't think there's even map markings that say that you're there. How have you managed?
It's on the map, but it's in parentheses.
Yeah, it's like maybe, maybe there's something here. Who knows? We haven't been to check. No one has. So you're in this middle of nowhere place. How have you built up the training in your gym that's allowed you to compete to this level?
Man, some of it is just being really lucky. Some of it I just cannot. I mean, like, the fact that I've had stuff like a lot of people know who John Thomas is now, right? And like a lot of people know him as this very highly respected coach. I've known him since he was a blue belt and he was redheaded John because we grew up in the same like area. And so there were times I got to train for really long periods with him. There's just always been these times and these relationships that I've been able to build. And so that was something that helped me really have a broad understanding of jiu-jitsu. And then something about, it's kind of what is fun about Granite City is also what is not desirable about Granite City, and it's the people. And there is this toughness and this grittiness to the human beings that grow up in Granite City. And just the Southern Illinois area, just the area that I'm in, like Daisy Fresh is about an hour and a half away from us. And something Heath Pedigo always talks about is like how tough just it is to live in these areas. Like yeah. There's really not a lot of work. There's not a lot of things to do. The weather is terrible. There's no reason to be there. And, but there are groups of human beings that are just there. And I think that you get a bunch of people that are just dedicated and there's not much going on. And they go, wait, we can compete all around the country. We can compete all around the world. We could be good at this. Like, okay, we'll dedicate everything to this. And then there's also just a really strong wrestling base in the town. I recently went to Florida and I was training at a place, and then it always what happens, like nobody knows who I am. And then, I'm going with a bunch of blue belts and thrashing them, in no-gi, and they're like, who is this freaking guy? And so like, where are you from? Like, oh, I have a gym in Granite City, Illinois. And this guy looked over at me and he goes, did you say Granite City? And I go, yeah. He goes, man, I did some work there for a while. He goes, that's a different place. I'm like, yeah, man. And so as I'm leaving, I hear the guy say to the other people, yeah, Granite City is pretty much the Dagestan of Illinois. And I was like, dude, I'm going to leave. Okay. I don't even know how to respond to that. But there's just this strong wrestling base, and those things just have all kind of culminated to having a really, really tough room that you just get to get good training in, man. And for me, it's like I got to a point where I'm like, this room is by far strong enough to help me train and fight against anybody.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Like, it does. I was sitting there just clicking in, like, I'm pretty sure, isn't that like a Pokemon town? I'm gonna have to check. I'm pretty sure maybe the second that's where Brock is from. It's a rock hard gym. And I thought, yeah, I'm surprised if that's the case. If Granite City, I will check my Game Boy behind me. I have a cartridge of Pokemon Red. I will check afterwards, and if it is, like, you have missed a trick with like naming your gym. Like you should just be the Brock of the area that people have to like call through and beat.
Man, was it Granite? Was it Granite City? I know it Dude, it might be. I don't know. I know I've played Red hundreds of hours, but I don't know for sure.
Dude, it may take me like 5 minutes to load it up, so I'm not going to do it now. Like, start playing through Pokemon Red again. Like, I'll find out for us in this podcast.
There's going to be a bunch of you going and trying to blow out all the cartridges so they work.
Dude, I need like like how Rogan has a Jamie. Like, I need a Jamie right now to, like, Jamie, find out, like, was it Granite City? I'm gonna have to look it up at some point. It's gonna bug me. Yeah. So next time I get you on a topic and you start like going, you may just see me just like quickly check because my impatience won't allow it.
I get that.
But yeah, it's understandable because I'd say like Northern England is the Dagestan of England. And it was a lot of mining towns, and it just made tough people who had nothing else to do. Iceland is another one of those places. I think you need to do one of these Globetrotter camps. I think Iceland. I think you'll have a great time there. Again, like, you think 6 months of the year they don't have sunlight. What are they going to do? They're gonna live in a gym, eat shark, and get good at jiu-jitsu. And they're all genetic freaks. They're all massive. They're all like 6'5" and blonde, with giant ass muscles, and all they do for all year is lift because it's cold as fuck. And I'd say it felt very similar to rolling at your gym and rolling in Iceland, or like northern UK where it's just miserable and depressing all the time. But Granite's nice. You had fireflies. It's the first time I'd seen them.
Those weren't fireflies, Chris. I need to tell you. Those were genetically altered regular flies from the mill. Those weren't real fireflies. Those ate all the real fireflies.
I've heard you guys have Monsanto and stuff. Like those crop spreading, like, it's going to end up weird. And yeah, it's one thing, like, it has kind of, it made me watch what you did with your team a lot closer when. There's that realization that how well you do is always down to the, especially when we're in secluded areas and we don't have big jiu-jitsu teams. Like, if you're in South or Central Florida, you have so much jiu-jitsu around you. You have, Top Team, you have Black Zillions, you have all these massive gyms around you. Like, you have such a wealth of talent to call upon. If you're in the New York area, like, you have or San Diego or anything like that. It's like, yeah, of course, well, obviously you're going to get good jiu-jitsu in those areas. But when you're in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere, and how do you make good jiu-jitsu? How do you stare at a student like in the eyes and go, I know it's kind of going against us right now, but don't worry, I've got a plan. That's how I've had to, like, internalize and try and pay attention to what you do, and also to Danaher to an extent, as much as he waffles like a maniac, the guy has good ideas. And it is a case of, you're only as good as the team you have. And, it's one of the things that I'm just bashing every goddamn session is like, we are, if you try and do this just for yourself and just try and run ahead, you won't get far, because the team is what's going to make you. If you haven't got good training day in, day out, how can you expect to perform good when you're needed? And so build the team first and foremost, like, give your all to the team and it will pay you back. And it sounds like, because you have been in this situation of, you're in Granite, you've made this, you had this wealth of jiu-jitsu available to you, like, from John Thomas and the people you've had in the air, like, it's like Daisy Fresh. You've had good training around you. So how do you implant that into your gym, make up these incredible athletes in this place that it shouldn't really exist? And yeah, like, you rising tide raises all ships. And it does, again, like, going into your gym, it's one of the friendliest gyms I've been to. Like, Johnny Buck is another one who, you go into his gym in Asheville, North Carolina. one of the friendliest gyms in the world. Again, rough ass place, like click clack kind of like area.
Uh-huh.
But again, like, you know, the gym mentality, and I think as a coach, especially, you know, you run that team, you create the environment, and it still makes me sad when I see posts online of people getting upset when they get bashed up by, you know, like a higher belt, like, you know, these purple belts just keep kicking my ass and stuff like that. It's like, what are they trying to prove by kicking your ass? Like, you know, they should be building you up, because if they build you up, it builds themselves up. But I think that can easily be done where if you create that environment where everyone is just like, well, how do I improve? Fuck everyone else. If I, you know, the amount of times I hear, you know, I used to hear from various places like, oh, you know, don't release this information just yet because it's going to give me a head start in my gym. I'm like, why? Why is that important? And Rob Bernanke said it really well in one of the podcasts the other week of, for most people, their competition is the gym. Like, they don't compete, but the only place they get competition is in the gym, so they're always competing against the people around them. And you think, that's your limiting factor now. You're never going to be able to improve past the people around you if you hold them down. Same as that analogy of my son. Like, if I just trick shot this ball over your head repeatedly, you're never going to get better, which means I'm never going to get better in the future. We've self-limited. And it is one of those things that I kind of clicked going into your gym, like the team mentality, the understanding that we ain't going to do this alone. Like, we can't. It is up to all of us. Like, that was same with Danaher referring to the squad, the team. Like, they're only all as good as the ones they have around them. Like, if they didn't have all those good guys, would Gordon be where he is? Probably not. Like, he needed those good partners day in, day out. As simple as that. And you've created.
And I look at, I agree, man. I see that with so much, you know, so with everybody. Just how important that is to have the right group.
Yeah, and it's the coach. Like, it's you know, anyone who gets kind of frustrated at that idea that you know, they haven't got the good training, like, everyone's just kicking their ass and they never feel good about, you know, they're getting sad after training. Like, what the fuck? Why are you coming home sad? You should feel like invigorated from jiu-jitsu. Everyone should be like, it's a team, for fuck's sake. But the coach has to create that environment. Like, you know, it's from the top down. And if the coach can't create that environment, then it's a limiting factor on the team. The coach could be fantastic, but if he's got the students killing each other and going for each other's necks, it's going to have a high attrition rate. Like, people ain't going to stay, and you're gonna, you know, you might have some individuals who can run ahead, but it limits it. And, you know, all credit to you, sir. You know, the environment of Granite, the toughness of Granite. You hone that into a team that then, like I say, you know, you have managed to then take that training, which is your day-to-day training, and turn it into a world-class beating environment, which is stunning. Like I say, you should be a case study in good coaching and good team practice. But this is going to sound like a weird segue. You are probably the busiest man in jiu-jitsu that I know. Like, every time I talk to you, I feel so ridiculously lazy. So, like I say, you are a high-level athlete. Not to blow smoke up your ass, but you do well at competition. You do very well at competition. I highly recommend, if anyone goes to look up Josh McKinney versus AJ Agazarm, see how legit this man is. You now, like I say, work with mental models, doing their reviews, and you have a podcast that's just broken, what, 200 episodes?
Yep, I think
like
we're 207 or 208.
Hours.
Yeah.
How have you? For anyone, again, I have to, you know, this is for my personal benefit as much as anyone who could possibly listen to this. How did you build this successful last podcast? Like, what, like, you are a very friendly person, and that's obviously going to always help. But what advice would you give to anyone building a podcast?
Man, I would say that just doing it, literally just being consistent is going to be the most important thing. But to understand what that actually means, is there are certain things that you just have to do all the time, like how you reached out to me to schedule me for a podcast, right? You have to do it all the time, and you have to either have an assistant or a system that does it. And I don't have those things, but I just try to build habits in my routine. Like for instance, I go to a lot of jiu-jitsu competitions. I will go to a jiu-jitsu competition and have conversations with everybody. I really don't have, besides AJ, I don't really have any enemies in jiu-jitsu. And so I don't really have, there's no one that's ever like, everyone's always cool. We always get to talk, and then good conversations. A lot of times I'll go, hey, I'm going to put this guy in the list and I'm going to ask this guy later. Right. Just a really simple habit that I've gotten into that lets me get more people on the schedule and stay consistent. But the truth is, like, if you're just staying consistent, especially if you're willing to listen to your own episodes, because then you can kind of self-correct and go, oh, this doesn't make any sense, or this sounds so douchey, you can't say that, like, and you can correct that and fix it. And then you just get a bunch of reps. It's just like anything else, just like getting good at jujitsu. Like, yeah, we need understanding, but we also, just like having that good team, we need good reps. And so on the podcast, you just get more and more interviews. You stay more and more consistent on it. I still don't. This is always funny for me to say, like, I don't monetize my podcast at all. I don't sell ad space or anything like that. I sell my own instructionals from my own website on my podcast. And that's basically it, because for me, it's just been about, I want to build this into something before I start worrying about selling it. And before I start worrying about trying to get ad space on it and all those things,
Oh, I think I've lost him. Josh, if you can hear me, I'm going to have to edit this.
I can hear you now.
That's like my worst nightmare.
Now
you're back. Oh, yeah, we had a moment there where you completely disappeared from the podcast. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to, like, edit. It's just work.
Kill me now, man. Yes. I built this whole studio so I didn't have to edit. It's just done when it's done.
Well, that's why I'm on Riverside. Shout out to Riverside, some of the best podcasting software there is. Because it saves locally, then uploads afterwards. So I'm pretty sure it's going to look fine. But unfortunately, everyone else is going to hear what you just said. I did not hear what you just said. So please repeat the answer.
Just the big thing with the podcast is just that consistency. So when I'm doing, when I'm looking at everything in my podcast, it is like, is this helping me be more consistent? Is the way of doing this helping me be more consistent? Because the theory is, like, after 5-6 years of really being consistent on a podcast, how could you not have a big podcast if you're posting good content, especially if you're posting good, helpful jiu-jitsu content? And then, like, trying to build a team around you is going to be big with, if you're trying to build a big podcast, is like kind of what you have. You have Naki, you have somebody that makes it easy to do an interview, right? So you have somebody that, like, anytime you start to go, oh, there's nobody for an interview, oh, I'm going to get an episode this week and I'll stay consistent, right? And so to me, those things are how you build a big podcast. Obviously, being able to, like, for you specifically, being able to get big interviews, because you already are a member, you've been on every podcast, you're already a member of so many different places. And so you're able to get so many different, big interviews. I think if you just stayed consistent on that, yours would be successful no matter what. I just think that is, you have good content. I listen to it, and people think that my opinion on podcasts matters, so I just think that's kind of it's just a matter of staying consistent and having a system and a group of ideas and the right people around you that keep you consistent.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like one of the best bits of advice for anything, but especially when it comes to business, social media, and internet content, is remaining in the conversation. And if you, I mean, one of my favorite things to look at on a day-to-day basis is so Preet, the man who gave me my black belt, he's a famously grumpy Estonian, very introverted fella. Yeah, he posts like 8 Instagram stories a day, like about anything. I'm like, how, why? And then you realize that he stays in the conversation every single day. Same as when it comes to a podcast, like, people who care about internet content. I mean, again, not like it's hinted behind me. If anyone's watching this on the YouTube video for this, there are many retro consoles behind me. Like if there's a certain gaming show on YouTube, and I know it comes out every Tuesday or Friday, I'm there every Friday watching it. It's the exact same with anything. Like, we are unfortunate creatures of habit, and if you have some good content and you want to stay in that conversation, if people know that your podcast comes out every Wednesday, it better be there every Wednesday. And yeah, I think that it's a really good point. Like, especially when it comes to a niche sport that we're in, it helps to have, it's hard to have that kind of list of people to talk to, and if you're not a friendly person, and you're not reaching out to people,
villain,
and you're not, yeah. So yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. Like, some of the is probably easiest but hardest advice to kind of follow, especially because it's, I felt it quite a lot last year. It was just exhaustion. When you're engaging with people all of the time, like, it's not a bad thing. I love talking to people, but after coming to America, doing the seminar tour around with Charles, the Fanatics DVD, and I was like, I'm burnt. I can't, especially after the Globetrotters camps. I was like, I need some silence for a couple of months. I'm gonna just hide for a bit, and that is the enemy of these things. Like, just getting that kind of exhaustion going. I need to stop for a while, because then it's so hard to come back into it, and then people are gone.
Oh, it is.
It's so it's the thing is, I say you can liken that to jiu-jitsu. I think the if I always say to people, if they get injured, keep coming to the gym, because I liken it to the way I describe it is like, imagine a vase filled with water, and it's got a stone in the bottom. And that's your jiu-jitsu time. You take the stone out. It doesn't just leave a hole there where the stone used to be. Like, the water's going to come fill in where the stone was, and that's your time. Like, you take out your jiu-jitsu one evening, it's not like there's just a hole where you just like stand still for like 2 hours. Like, something's going to come in, it's going to take it, and putting that stone back in again, it's not going to fit the same way. Maybe water's not a good example. Maybe sand. It's irritating, gets everywhere. Yeah, and it's injury can cause that. You get fucked up. Something hurts, and you go, oh, I'll go for 2 or 3 weeks and heal up. Yeah, bye. Never see you again. That's I like that person. Never gonna see them again. Shouldn't have injured them. So what's next for Josh McKinney? I say you are the busiest man. You not content with running a jiu-jitsu business gym and a great team, and being a fantastic coach. Not content with being a high-level athlete, competing at black belt so often around the US. Not content with running a super consistent, successful podcast, and now reviewing for mental models. What else are you going to do? Where have you found this extra time?
Well, first, I'm always content, Chris. I just enjoy doing these things. Like, think about it, dude. I'm a nobody from Granite City, Illinois, and people care about my opinions on jiu-jitsu, and people enjoy watching me compete. And I get to just still compete. I'm a grown man, and I get to still play the sport that I played growing up. Not many people get to do that. And there's just all these things that I get to do that not many people get to do. And so even though it is definitely exhausting at times, it's a blast. There's nothing that I would rather be doing than what I do. I kind of have a life built around being able to do what I enjoy. So that I am always, it's not like this extra desire to do all these things to me. Maybe it is. It's just I have fun, and like, what else am I gonna do with my time? This is jujitsu stuff's the only thing I'm good at, man. And so just for me, I think like next is just getting better at all these things, being able to put out more consistent instructionals, being able to always have great interviews coming out on my podcast, and just really, being able to do that. For right now, that means trying to build the systems. So, because like you said, I'm busy. And so when I'm having to spend hours a day editing on podcast stuff, it's time I could have been spending doing something else. And so trying to build the system and build the team so I don't have to do those things as much, and I can just do the things I already do, but do them at a higher level. Have more time with my top athletes in the gym, have, those kind of things. And then all that being said, the next big thing, and the reason for building all these things is because I have a baby on the way. And so that will be the next big thing. I'm sure that will consume some time,
Well, I didn't want to say it. Obviously, I knew. I didn't want to just because if you hadn't said it on yours, and and I was like, oh, Josh is gonna have a bit. And when I said about my 9-year-old son, you're gonna one day find out. I didn't want to say anything. It's your news, but yes, I am so ridiculously excited for you and Emily, and I hope that your son doesn't do jiu-jitsu, and so you feel the burning pain that I feel, because you think my son and daughter, the only life they've known is a jiu-jitsu mat. From the moment they could stand, they're on mats, and they couldn't care less about jiu-jitsu, and not for want of trying. They've had gis and they've been in the gym, but I mean, did your dad coach you, or was it?
Nah, we were starting together the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is that I've tried to coach them, and anytime that a little bit of adversity just washes over them, they just want to cuddle you, and because you love them, apparently, you cuddle them, and you're like, get off, I'm teaching, oh, I love you though, I know I love you too, and it all falls apart from there on out. So I think you need to give them to Kyle. I think you
let him train. What's funny is his son does jiu-jitsu at my gym.
Really?
He really does. He really does.
I just swap. It's almost like Game of Thronesian. He's the ward that has to live in the other house for a bit as a trade. You have his son, he has yours. And then
that's a good idea.
In 15 years' time, you can hand them back as trained warriors. Because you can't even do it with your dad either. Because Steve McKinney, the legend black belt who makes other black belt traveling jiu-jitsu athletes drop to the floor and tap out from his workouts. Fucker. I still, I love your dad, but I can't forgive him for that moment. I need to just plug this. The workouts your dad creates, 15 minutes. I thought, I can survive 15 minutes of this dude's workout. Dude, I remember being on the floor, on all fours, him saying, "Come on, Chris, just do a push-up." I'm shaking. I physically can't move at this point. He's like, "Okay, right, you can just put your hand on my shoulder." I'm like, "Okay." Right, start tapping. I'm like, "Okay." And we're thinking it's a new exercise. And he goes, "There you go, I made you tap." And I'm like, you dick. And I've got the video saved on my Instagram, and I think Charles starts laughing at that moment in time. But yeah, you can't even. hand over your son's, like, be coached by your granddad, because he's a lovely guy, and like he can't be that imposing force that you need. Like, yeah, you have to get the junior, one of your other coaches to do it in the gym, because you can't be involved. I think that's the worst
That's
thing.
a good idea,
like,
man.
You can't coach your own kids.
I just figured, to be honest, with my son, I just figured as long as I get him on steroids at a young age, that he'll do jiu-jitsu eventually. Like he'll
Galval style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What age, if you could choose, what age would you start him at jiu-jitsu?
If I could choose,
I mean, I guess you can. He's your son.
I don't know. I don't want to start him too young in jiu-jitsu. I'm sure that dad and him will wrestle all the time, but that's just life. You got to wrestle your way through life, dude. You don't have to come to jiu-jitsu class, but you got to grapple. You've got to, you want to stay up late for TV? Can you hold me down? No, you can't. Oh, you can't keep me flat with your 4 years of experience of being on earth and my 20 years of jiu-jitsu experience. Go to bed. And so that's going to be, he's going to need jiu-jitsu for the life that he's going to have to live. So it's probably going to be best for him to go to class. But I really feel like until even 8 or 9, I don't even know if I would be, stressed.
No. No, I think your sound's disappeared again. I think the internet connection's a bit terrible. But it will appear on the main podcast. Yeah, I think it's. Can I hear you? Can you hear me? Has my sound died? Oh, there you are. There you are. Was it your setup?
I have no idea. I didn't change anything. It said recording stopped, and now the recording has resumed.
Okay. Yeah, I said actual recording would be high quality. Strange. I don't know how. I think it's because we both, like, you live in Granite, I live in Stafford, and it's not really a hotspot for like good internet, because why would it?
Yeah.
And so it makes these things hard.
They're like, they don't even have
it's much easier
there.
in your studio, just recording on a camera and uploading it like verbatim.
Oh yeah.
Weirdly, so actually, like, kids love rough housing. Like, I've kicked my son's ass, but I haven't, not in a violent way. Like, I've not got a temper on me. I've never raised my voice to my kids. I'm I'm more of an eerie negotiator. Like, I see you're sad. Like, how can we adjust your feelings to resolve this? Like, why aren't you shouting? Because I don't do these things. But I still kicked his ass when it comes to wrestling around, because kids love rough housing. But weirdly, like, I actually, so I go rock climbing, I go bouldering, and there's one of the kids in there. He must be like, he must be about 18 or something. But I've heard rumors. The reason he's so good is because his parents, when they made his bed, they made a climbing wall up to his bed, and so from like the age of like 2, if he wanted to go to bed, he had to go up a small climbing wall to like get into his bed, like a loft bed, like bunk bed kind of thing. And if that is anywhere near true, that is incredible. Like, I would create a similar kind of environment. Like, they have to do like 3 berimbolos to, like, unlock their sheets or something. Like, if you can't invert for 3 minutes, you can't sleep tonight. Or like, maybe like, how you have like gis, like just like sleeve grips. They've got to like pull themselves up on sleeve grips, like climb into bed. So they have like horrible sleeve, like spider guard when they grow up.
Man,
these are all ideas.
I'm liking these ideas, man. I still like my idea of putting them on steroids better. I think that's more essential than anything else that you said for jiu-jitsu. But I like the stuff you're saying too.
I remember actually when I think it was one of the previous times. It might be when Charles was with me when I was over at yours, and we were talking about being a high-level athlete and like guys in the gym, and you saying anyone who wants to be a high-level athlete, it's like, cool, when you starting your steroids then? I think they were your words, and I was like, I think I am naive. And then I think the whole thing with Gordon that came out recently when Nicky Rod said to him, like, I'll get tested if you get tested. Like, why? It's not illegal in jiu-jitsu. Like, why do I have to get tested? It's like, he's right. He's an asshole, but he's right.
I see it when I compete. I always claim, and people don't believe me, but I still wholeheartedly believe when I compete, at least 90% of the guys that I grapple are on. And I just like, there is a different feel. There's a different, I mean, I'll go out to these matches that I'm cutting 3 pounds in the morning. I'm dieting for months. And I come out to these matches and guys they'll look twice as big as me. In the same division. We weigh the same. And they will be huge. They'll have insane cardio. We'll fight. Someone will tell me after, oh, you beat that guy. He's really tough. But he usually competes at lightweight. He usually competes 15 pounds lighter than he was today. And I'm like, wait, he was bigger than me at middleweight. That doesn't make sense. And that happens every tournament. It's unbelievable how much that happened. And it's just like, that's a huge part of how a lot of people treat the sport is like, it's not, because they find ways to get reps, but the ways to get reps are just too hard on their body. And so then they go, well, this will let me get more reps. And then they just get a bunch more reps, right? And those reps are usually live from the feet, hard rounds. And most of them, I don't think, there's no reason to innovate out of like, well, what if there was a way to protect our body? We didn't have to do this and get good. And I don't think that I think that they're like, yeah, there is a way. We'll just get on steroids and then we can protect our body and we're fine. And so I see the reason, I see why so many people are on, but it is also one of those things where you're like, man, I wonder how good I would be if there was actually testing. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that all the guys that I probably lose to natural guys too, but I'm just saying there's just curiosity for me with that.
No, completely. It is like the recovery on those things is phenomenal. It means you can especially like I can see. So I think it was a Cowboy when he retired. He went on to TRT, and he said like, "Holy shit! I can see why this is banned." Because if you've got especially at like an older age, or like you've got those years on your body, like you've got all those years of experience, and then the body of someone who can like of a 20-year-old again, like that's just not fair. Like there has to be a trade-off. You've either got mileage on your body, but you've got the experience, or you've got less mileage on your body. But you have athleticism and youth on your side. You can't be given both. That's just not right. Like you got all these years of experience built up, and then no mileage on your body because you're on these recovery aids, essentially, which is essentially what they are. Like your recovery is quicker. You get to go out harder and train harder and come back, recover faster, and go do it again. Chemically enhanced, obviously, and yeah, it's like seeing how big he got, and I think he got fat head syndrome as well, which you can see that with Connor currently, how he's skipping USADA a little bit longer. Yeah, guy's got fat head syndrome. Like that's a clear cut sign of something. Like you don't normally build muscle on your head. Yeah, unless there's something different going into you.
My dad always joked that those guys, they were on, and then their jaw muscles just got so big from being on, and chewing so much that they get that fat face, Yeah,
exactly. Like you can't help where that muscle goes, and if you're still eating, which I assume you are, or breathing. Like you're gonna get fat head syndrome. I have seen like people before, and like they've suddenly stacked on muscle, and I've looked at them and gone, I would say like you've just been hitting the gym a lot, but you've got a fat head. And they're like, yeah, I know. Like, yeah, I know. Fat head syndrome. I can't dodge that one.
Have you ever had a training partner? Have you ever felt like somebody get on not seen it, but felt it in training?
For as in someone who's on
Like got on steroids. Like you go with them
medically
before.
enhanced.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden one day you're like, wait a second, something's different, and it wasn't technique. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna name him.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure anyone like good friends of mine who listen to this are gonna like start. Like, if Naki's listening to this, like I hope I'm gonna tell him to listen to this podcast, and like Naki, hey Nak, start laughing. Yeah, I felt it's not Naki. Like Naki's au natural. But yeah, we have we have felt an individual who all of a sudden like, whoa, you're a lot bigger than you used to be. Your head's fatter, and you shouldn't be this powerful and training this hard. This makes no sense. What are you on, sir? Like, nothing. Like, okay.
Yeah, what are you
Sure.
talking about?
Well,
Force feed.
I'll just stare at you until you admit. But yeah, like I say, it's and I, as a point to kind of almost finish on, because I know your evening is about to begin, mine is coming to an end. It's a problem with our sport is from top to bottom, it's fucked up and delegitimizing itself relentlessly. We have, as proven by them, almost like this is going to like pull everything together. You have these new coaches coming through are just talking sport for the first time. Like what athletes across legitimate sports have known for ages, we're now doing in jiu-jitsu, some of us, and we're like, oh, this is different. Like, yeah, because you're not training like a martial art anymore. We're treating it like a sport. Oh shit. So yeah, the coaching still in the dark ages, still taught like a martial art. It's not. Rob Bianchi said it really well. Was it Rob or could have been Sodas? Sodas seems more bitter, so it might have been Sodas. Is that we've over-marketed jiu-jitsu, like to try and sell the martial art aspect of, a smaller, weaker person can beat a bigger, stronger person if they have the right technique. Yeah, maybe, but still going to get your head kicked in. And as part of the problem, we're still trying to sell it down the martial art route. Then you have the fact that our biggest competition-ish, like the main branding governing body of the IBJJF, is owned by Baja. How can you have it has to be an NGO, which then because we're not, and it's going to be kept that way because we fight for a team, we don't fight for our country, and which means we can never be an Olympic sport. We're always going to be this way. And because of that, because it's all private organizations and not legit open governing bodies of amateur sport that are going to eventually, hopefully one day be in the Olympics, there's no fucking drug testing. And so if there's no drug testing and no reason to not do it, fuck it. Take everything you can find. Let's have a super sport.
What I noticed doing jiu-jitsu, man, is that this is just a theory. It's just a random, it's just a random Granite City conspiracy theory. But the jiu-jitsu training model was actually built around steroid use. The way that jiu-jitsu is not the three moves and then we roll light and gently like sometimes in America is thought of as the training model, but the athlete training model that everyone follows in jiu-jitsu. Live rounds from the feet every single day. You fight to the death every single day. Then you wake up the next day and you do it again. And that is not sustainable. It is just too hard. You do that in your gym. If you don't have steroid athletes, you will notice that the injuries in your gym just skyrocket. And that is because that model was built around human beings who were enhanced. And so, yes, that model worked. To act like that model that they still follow at a lot of the biggest gyms in the world, which is do steroids, get hard reps with world champions, that model works really well. But if you're in Granite City, How are you going to do it? How are you going to be able to get reps with world champion? Well, you can't. You have to think differently. We have to think differently. And so that's, I think, what a lot of people that are bringing in sport to these things are, they're saying, hey, this model, there's something wrong with the current model. And yeah, the current model is just not sustainable. You will get injured and you will not be able to compete at a high level if you're injured all the time. And so, oh, if you want to fix your injuries, just get on the sauce, man. And so I think that that is the reason that people aren't innovating. But my plan, I actually have a plan to fix it, Chris. Would you like to know my plan?
Yes. You've sold me the second you said there's a Granite City plan.
I'm going to win something big, Chris. I don't know what it's going to be. Who knows? I don't care if I'm wearing a gi, if I'm not wearing a gi. I'm going to win something big, and they're going to give me a microphone. And I'm going to say, I'm not on steroids. I never left my home gym. And to all you people that are on, your only answer to beat me is to do more steroids. And that's going to be where I leave it. And then I'll never compete again.
Oh.
So that is, yeah, that's my plan to fix it.
How old are you now? Are you 30? Or close
29.
to 30? 29.
Yep.
That was it. Can you smell that? That's Masters. That's Masters calling you now. Where they're all on fucking TRT. You wait till you meet those big bastards. Dude, you think you're fighting tough fucks now? You wait. Black Belt Masters, just TRT.
Oh yeah,
everywhere. I'd start now. Like, yeah, like, you know, steroids have passed you by. Like adult steroids, you know, you're 29 years old. Like time for that Masters TRT, son. Like you have to hit that one hard.
But I wonder if it's like, you know, like they'll talk about the first high of a drug or something. People like, oh, this, I remember this first high. I wonder if, you know, since I haven't done steroids, if I did like one really big adult cycle, if I would get more than the guys that have done it for a long period of time. You know, I wonder if it would like, you know, raise me up big. So maybe I should go everything all at once to start, you know, right when I turn 30.
Yeah, exactly. Just one season. Just one season. Think this year, 2024, I'm going to win everything. And I'm going to be pumped to the fucking gills. I'm gonna look like that liver motherfucker. Like, I'm going to look like a road map. Like, there's going to be 0% body fat. I'm going to look like a fucking road map of Granite City, I am. That's, dude, 2024, like, go out on a high.
I like that.
They can't beat you like that, they'll never beat you. Dude, I miss you. I hopefully I can come out and play, and I know that there's no way you are coming to Europe and leaving your good lady and your son at home. So I guess I've got to come back to Granite.
I mean, yes, you do have to come back to Granite, but they could annoy me. You know, I could be like, Chris, I got to get out of here. I got to get to England.
Flying to the UK. Like, did you come to the Europeans? You didn't. You said you may come Europeans, didn't you, earlier on in the year?
I had guys that even did it too, and I didn't come. I abandoned them.
I'm glad you didn't come, because if I found out you came all this way and didn't visit, we wouldn't be friends, man.
I know. I would have visited. I promise.
Even like, you know, because I started like the last trip in San Francisco, and like, you know, I would have bailed out the plane at 30,000 feet, halo dropped down to Granite City. If I thought there was a flyover chance, like, no, man, like, I'm flying over Josh's. I'm coming straight down to play. But I should be out before the end of the year. And yeah, I miss you guys. I miss training at your gym. I'm getting pretty much on first names basis with so many people at your gym. And I miss everyone. I can't wait to come play. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. But it's nice actually being asked to go on a podcast. Like, you know, you'd always do it's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like, you're always asking people to go on. Like, no, I want to hear Josh McKinney. Yeah, if anyone who's made it this far, check out Josh. Check out all his work. He's probably one of the busiest guys in Jiu-Jitsu, and now he's got a kid on the way, and he's just going to get even busier. So check out his fights on YouTube. Check out his Instagram channel. Check out the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu podcast on YouTube and all good podcasting platforms. Go listen to an episode straight after this one. Guy's amazing. Please, if you're ever horrendously lost in the St. Louis area and you end up passing over the border, go to Granite City. You will not be disappointed.
You could be disappointed. You could.
Dude, like New York, Tampa, fucking Tampa, San Francisco, Denver, Boston. Nah, man. Granite City is where it's at. Every trip, like, nope, that's home. Like,
out of all the cities in America. Out of all the cities in America.
When I get to your dad's house and I'm just driving past and I see like the house appear on the horizon, and like I know the bedroom's there waiting for me, I'm like, and like your dad's Folgers coffee in the morning, like I'm so happy. I can't even describe it. Dude, I love this, and we'll have to make this, I'll have Reap the Week with Naki, and I'll have the I Suck at Being a Villain show with you. Like, we'll make this weekly almost.
I love it.
Take care, dude. Thank you for agreeing to this. Good luck in the next few months. I won't pester you around October. You may be a busy man.
Thank you for having me on, Chris.
Pleasure, dude. Thank you for giving me your time.